me just a sec to get set here. Hello, everyone. I'm recording this, so by all means, feel free to check the replay for posterity for the recording. It is January 1st, 2022, and there's a really robust conversation going on in the lounge. Hold on, where am I going to get my chat? I'll get my chat here. Let me tag the Friends Lounge. I'm in the main stage to answer questions. There's just a few, there's more than a few updates about VeeDao. And so I thought I'd record a video so that I can post an announcements instead of writing a long message. And then I'll take what's in the video and I'll also put it in text. So just very quickly, and then I'll also take questions if people have them. I really hope that our friend in here, Gabor, I don't know how to say your name, Gabo ARG, comes in, because they have they've basically rewritten our FAQ, which I think is really, really helpful, sort of asking about like, where does the value come from being a holder, and how does the DAO work, and everything else. So let me start with the POAPs. Okay, so we are working on making a sort of robust POAP offering that sort of happened inadvertently, to be completely honest, in that we started with the 25 days of POAP, and I'm actually going to rename this channel right now to When POAP for the time being. Now that the 25 days of POAP is over. And so because we have such an active POAP community, and we just did the AMA with Worthalter yesterday, where we released a POAP, and I'm excited to add some utility to that specific one. And I think we can play with that going forward. I'm getting lost. I like had the idea. I was like, let's just talk it out. Basically what I want people to know right off the bat is that, Gabo, I see your hand. I'll bring you up in just a second. What I want people to know is that the POAP for the first couple AMAs was an afterthought. So we didn't have the art ready at the time. And there's a bottleneck at me specifically, because there was a excess of ENS addresses in the wallet channel that the POAP delivery didn't like and didn't agree with. So I have to go through and copy each individual ENS into Etherscan, and then get the controller address and copy it and put it in the Excel, and then run the duplicate algorithm again and make sure there are none, and then send it to POAP. And with the holidays and everything else, I just got backed up. So the POAPs for Flower Girls, for Ethereum Towers, for 2 or 3 others that you were present at, I have all of your wallet addresses ready. I have them organized. I just have to go through and update the ENSs. And before we do our next one, which will be with Stoner Cats next week, followed by NFT Trader, it might be the other way around, but next week is AMAs with NFT Trader and Stoner Cats. And before that, I'm going to record a tutorial about POAPs. It might end up being 2 or 3 tutorials, like one for like how to receive POAPs through delivery in our system, just explaining that like you have to be there in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the AMA. We will open up the channel, leave your wallet address. Do me a favor, don't use your ENS, use your full address to save us the time, because that creates a bit of a bottleneck. And then I also want to create a tutorial on POAPs in general, how to create them. Once you do, how to use delivery, how to use secret words, how to do the bot and codes and whatever else. So I'm really motivated this year to just create a lot more tutorial content. For those who have been following me, like my main focus has been on community support relative to VeeFriends, aggregating information, updates, making sure people don't miss stuff. And more recently, I've been spreading out into more general NFT stuff. And I think it's going to be a responsibility for all of us that want this space to succeed to onboard people not for the monetary gain, but for the benefits of networking, community, technology, and so forth. I'm not dismissing the monetary gain. I'm certainly trying to make money in this space as well. I've been lucky enough to quit my job and pay my rent for the last 2 months doing this, but that's just one aspect of the opportunity, especially being that we're so early. And I want to present all angles of it for people who are coming in. And I know that one of the biggest value propositions of being a part of this DAO, besides the excitement of a future where we can actually distribute ownership of these blue chip tokens that we're accumulating, is the education piece, is learning about how DAOs function and tools for governance, is learning about how to create NFTs, how to market them, how to develop communities, how to create content, and then the cooperative element of like you having an idea and needing someone to fill in a gap and being able to post it in the friends lounge or the owners lounge, and somebody in the community has that complementary skill set, and you can both level up together. The same way that we're doing with book games and the player pool, because while we don't have the information details about book games, it's very clear to us that the more you have, the better. And it seems like there's going to be some kind of gamification about collecting not just any token, but specific tokens. And so we want to create a space here. That's why we opened up the player pool channel, where people can more effectively trade safely and securely, but also, with the head start, the shared knowledge, as we all learn in the early days, what rarity looks like, what tokens are needed, or what the prizes are as that comes out. Another update relative to VeeDao is I want to update the language in FAQ and in mission statement, as a lot of things that have been explained as how the process works. The DAO tokens governing the vault, not every little action that the organization of the project takes, and little nuances like that have mostly been in AMAs and done by voice, and is not as clear as I want it to be in those FAQs. So on that note, I'm going to bring up Gabo, who was asking some really great questions. And if anybody else has questions, you can raise your hand. And that's that. Hey, Gabo, good morning. And before you go, I just want you to know I am recording this, so I hope that's okay. If it's not, please let me know.
It's okay. Hey, Jeremy, thank you. It's okay to be recorded, and thank you for the time and the possibility to ask those Frank's questions that I have also on my Web3 journey.
Yeah.
So you should understand that my situation is that I like the content that you create. I recently, in the last couple of months, have understood that this guy Gary V is somehow of a trendsetter or avant-gardist or a signal maker, call it whatever. So I am evaluating spending resources, that being Ethereum or my attention time span, to participate on some of his universe. And that's the question I'm asking. Is it worth it? Should I? Is it a good idea? Of course, there is always a component of a bet, and I'm comfortable with it. But as again, I'm doing some form of analysis. And what I see here, I came here with the idea of taking the bet, meaning I know, and the DAO token is like somehow of a small bet to participate. So that's great. But then in the more theoretical aspect is I don't understand how being on these. I would say it quite frankly.
Please.
This guy has companies on his name. Then he has 3 friends that is like an FT coalition with his name, and VeeDao, and a DAO with his name. So it's a lot of I would say popular, or he's very present, but But then again, and as any venture, whenever that person is very present but sells multiple tickets to something that looks rather similar, it raises questions. So that's what I was asking. Having a VFriend NFT should somehow have the same role as having the token. And you tell me, or one of your colleagues says it's not the case, because being on a VeeDao allows you to buy other chips or other projects. Why not? But then you tell me that there is VFAM, and there is a lot of V's, right? And that's basically my situation. What I say, is it that there is a lot of V thingies where he participates coming, but it looks like a lot of paywalls and promises that I want to take. I'm aware that it's a bet, but when there is too much promises and too much paywalls, it raises questions.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you taking the time to sort of give me the verbal context, because I'm understanding that you have questions not just about VeeDao, but about Gary V and his role in NFTs and his VeeFriends project. So allow me to sort of simplify a bit. This project, VeeDao, is in a sense a NFT art offering like any other project. We partnered with an artist. I mean, the difference and part of why we're branded with the V thing that you're talking about is because we all met through VeeFriends, and we believe that VeeFriends is poised to survive, unlike 95% or more of the projects that have been launched in 2021. But that being said, it is relatively the same. You create a collection of artwork that will accrue value based on, or not that will, but that, like you said, you're kind of taking a bet that it will accrue value based on the artist, based on the creators, their ability to create an ecosystem, an IP, a community, and what have you. But Gary V is not affiliated with this in any way. The only correlation that Gary has to this is that we wanted to create a collection inspired by what he's doing through VeeFriends. And he was nice enough to work with us and Andy Kranak and others on the team to ensure that we weren't infringing on their IP rights. So when you're talking about multiple paywalls for this project, and I'll address them all separately. So there's VeeFriends, which is the actual Gary V NFT project. And there is no paywall to participate in that community. You don't need to have a token to be in that community. You need a token if you want to receive the benefits that he adds in value, such as airdrops or occasional access, or there are some token gated channels in the Discord. But for the most part, if Gary's going to talk about a project or share alpha, he does it with everyone. He does it on Discord, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all the rest. The VeeFriend token. Go ahead.
Let me just challenge that, because the utility of certain tokens is access, right? There is the art, and then there is the access.
Yes.
And if you tell me that Gary V or any person is selling some form of community, and then you tell me that you don't need to have the token to participate in the community, because the information, the alpha is going to everywhere on Twitter, that also rings a bell, as it's inconsistent with the general intuition that the value is by the community, the alpha, the having the time, having more time.
Got it. So let me rephrase. Let me rephrase. The value of a VeeFriends NFT is not the community, and it's not the alpha. It's a byproduct of the people that are in that space, in that Discord, and in that community, in Clubhouse, and wherever they are. The value of a VeeFriend NFT is the original collectible of an emerging intellectual property, namely whatever character you're looking at. Gary B, Just Jackal, Common Sense Cow. These are all inventions that Gary has made based on human attributes that he wants to see more prevalent in society. And he's going to build brands the way he has done with Budweiser and Pepsi and his 1:37 p.m., his VaynerMedia machine builds brands, builds marketing, builds valuable content. So now instead of building other people's businesses, he's going to build businesses around each of the IPs of these characters. So the value proposition of a token, while there is the upfront offering of vConference, which is something that's very tangible for people, that you can say, okay, I'm paying to be able to have access to this conference. And yes, that's behind a paywall. But the true value of the token in the long term, after the 3 years, is it being the first collectible of an IP that will, over time, see benefits as that IP begins to grow. Like the empathy elephant, for example, is a large character, and that character, along with the other wine-related characters, all received free wine when he did his first VeeFriends wine collaboration. It's not paying for the cost of your token, but it is incremental value that is given to holders of tokens based on collaborations with your character, in the same way that Perspective Pigeons got some free merch and Self-Aware Hairs got some free merch. When I'm saying there's not a paywall to VeeFriends, I'm talking about participation in the community, the specifically the Discord, right? And your access to people who are of like mind, that they would affiliate themselves with VeeFriends, but you don't have to have a token to be able to be there, is what I meant.
Okay.
So
let's assume I'm less interested than in buying a collectible of a human trait that Mr. Gary Vee wants to propose to the world.
Yeah.
And I'm more interested in what the DAO, because you're telling there's a utility that is pretty interesting, rather new and interesting, that I haven't seen elsewhere. That is, if I was part of the DAO and I buy up to one token, I would be part of the DAO, and then I would have governance, but also share the not ownership, but governance, and I would be able to use the PFP, but it's not about just PFP and Twitter, right? It's about that it's supposed, or right now it's used like a unique use. I mean, one person has it, one person use it. And what you're telling me, or what the DAO is telling me, that if I buy one token for 0.05 Ethereum, somehow I got the right to use up to 4 or 5 right now NFT, but tomorrow it could be, let's assume, just the double. And so
absolutely,
that access give me legal or enough cred to use all those NFTs as mine in a metaverse, and that's really useful. I mean, that's different and innovative, useful, and somehow, well, I guess then there's the idea that if any DAO would do that, then the value of the NFT per se would be decreasing, because as maybe I'm early, I have this information, but in 2 years maybe everyone will have it, and no one will buy an ape, and everyone will buy tokens of DAOs that buy apes, and then it's more democratic. It's different than
there are already DAOs that there's an ape DAO which holds 81 apes, but there's a lot of different layers to this, and it has to be built by token holders. So just to answer your initial question, like, yes, for a 0.05 mint, you have governance over the vault, and we as the admin decided before we launched this that you're welcome to use the PFPs. Now, for me, that's not really worth $200, but to somebody that is worth $200. They will, like anybody who has a token, is free in their own right to use the FaceTime 5 or the Swaggy Sea Lion or even the Fly Fish Club membership as a PFP. However, not all PFPs are equal. The VeeFriend token does not confer commercial rights and IP ownership to its holder. It's not like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, or I believe the Cool Cats as well. If the DAO was to acquire a Bored Ape Yacht Club, absolutely everyone could use the PFP, but we would need to have a very structured vote to say how can or should holders be able to use this image that we mutually bought in a commercial way, because at the end of the day, the reason that the commercial rights to a Bored Ape are valuable is because of an individual's ability. Well, number one, the culture and the brand that is elevated by the larger Bored Ape Yacht Club. But furthermore, on an individual level, how an individual, or like, you know, like the club in Miami, is going to use that Bored Ape to build further their presence in Web3 and in the real world and in the metaverse. So like, if we let anyone who had one token run rampant and make any kind of derivative of our ape or do whatever, that would be, you know, more risky. But if the DAO wants to do that, then we can vote to approve that. You know, we can say, yeah, or we could put a limit on it. You say you have to have 10 tokens, you have to have 5 tokens to be able to make a derivative. Like, I'm not really excited about that structure that I just laid out. But regardless, we have to be thoughtful when we acquire a token with commercial rights, how it is used and distributed. It's different than saying, yeah, you can use the PFP. Using the commercial rights, I think, is a much more complicated conversation, because it would be most advantageous if we were to buy a mutant or an ape, for example, for the DAO, to work mutually to say, how can this mutant or DAO or mutant or ape build the brand of the DAO as opposed to individual holders? Like,
gotcha. And it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, and then that's a part of education, right? Where this difference between having the actual picture on your Twitter, that or today technically we can do whatever,
right?
Legally, I guess a bit less. But then there's the discussion that what would happen if 10,000 people, or right now 2,000 people, DAO could take advantage of something that today is considered to be a personal asset? Yeah. How that would impact the conversation, and even the discussions, as you say. It would become a matter of vote of a DAO, and then of course the vote would take responsibility of what actually happens. If it's great. If it's a mistake, people will learn from it, and that's the value.
Right, and the, like I was saying earlier, like a big part of the value is the educational process of us working through this experiment and testing the boundaries of what we are comfortable with as a community, and having the agency to call for votes when those boundaries are violated. You know what I mean? Like, I don't expect, like, we've only had 4 or 5 votes, but we're going to need to do a lot more over time, because right now the tokens that you buy, the NFT, they govern the actions of the vault. Everything else is given to the discretion of the admin and the community leaders, which were nominated by token holders. But over time, we want to move farther into the decentralized side of the spectrum to say, here's another body that the token holders govern, whether it's an artist incubator or a nonprofit or a branding machine, you know, whatever that is. Right now, it's just the vault, because one of the main objectives of this project is to give individuals access to blue chip assets that they would otherwise have no way of holding on their own. Right? That's the fractional that you're talking about. But we have to write a very fine line of fractional governance versus fractional ownership, because 2 out of 3 of us are US based, and we have to respect the laws that are here. And there's just not a lot of clear guidance on how you can create a fractionalized ownership offering from a centralized entity that doesn't qualify as an unregistered security, which is something that I am no expert in, but I have spent the last 4 months learning about in sort of a hyper way, because, as you were saying, the VFam Not Yet a DAO is a different organization that you're probably unaware of the history, but Gary Vee sent his artwork to the Christie's auction house. And when he announced it, I personally sent out a tweet and I said, hey, wouldn't it be wild if we all threw in a couple bucks and were able to put like a serious bid on this artwork? And after 3 weeks of hard work, that moved from like 20 people who were interested in a meeting to 280 people who were actually putting money into a multi-signature vault. And I personally, on behalf of those individuals, went to the Christie's auction and won one of those artworks. And that set a lot of very real things into motion because it's a physical asset. It's much easier for a DAO to operate on chain only and own digital assets because a physical asset was acquired. Now we have storage costs, insurance costs, legal liability considerations beyond beyond the breadth of what this DAO requires.
But in that case, you do have ownership. I mean, VFAM has the ownership of that asset, and then it's legally aware and possible for the VFAM holders or VFAM members to possess and that the ownership of that asset that might or might not get valuated in time. Is that correct?
Yes. And I'll tell you why the VFAM, not yet a DAO, can own their vault and we cannot. And it's because the owners of the VFAM DAO equity do not change. If we wanted to give ownership of our vault to any token holder, we would have to restrict trading of tokens because it would be viewed as either an unregistered security or something otherwise.
I understand. Yeah. I mean, you don't need to go into details. I know that probably you have spent too much time on it, and I won't be the one that is able to see the difference, but I trust your judgment or whatever you're saying to me right now.
Yeah, I mean,
and I see the difference. Man, I mean, it's another organization buying another type of assets with another type of signature of whatever those 280 people have signed. That is not the same as minting and receiving a digital asset that it's called VeeDao coin or whatever.
Yes.
It's just different. It's a different thing. Okay. And does VFAM project for you, Jeremy, but in general in the V ecosystem has a roadmap for growth, or it was just buying that in that moment of time? Now we have it, and some moment we'll decide to sell it, and that's it.
Oh yeah, we have some ambitious plans. I mean, our roadmap for growth, first and foremost, is delivering value to people who have already minted the project. You know, we're a little more than 20%.
I was talking about VFAM. So then my question is VFAM a moment in time and just to buy that, or you Jeremy personally are going to be as involved in VFAM for those American, I guess, people, but don't worry, you don't need. I'm just materializing that idea into 200 American people that have signed papers and giving money to you personally in order to buy something that now needs storage. And then there is the VeeDao. My question is the VFAM something that will grow, or something that it's something in moment in time and there is only be one possible event for that is selling the asset that was bought before and just that, or it's both projects for you are equally demanding?
I understand your question. Both projects are equally demanding. They both have long futures ahead of themselves that will largely be decided by those participants. A big reason that I started this separate project is because of the limited access of the VFAM DAO. That organization, currently we're executing on the end of our first roadmap, which entails corporate incorporation and fractionalizing ownership on chain and deploying a DAO smart contract, like a true smart contract, you know, with a governance token. But we have to get legal approval for all of that. We just brought a legal firm on retainer a couple weeks ago. This DAO we began because there were so many more hundreds of people who wanted to be a part of that.
When you mean VeeDao?
The VeeDao, yes. All of that process was for the VFAM was very time concentrated. And so many people found out about it right at the last moment and they missed the deadline and there's nothing to be done about it. but we all knew that there was a special moment in the VeeFriends market where we could pool our resources and accumulate many. You know, like for the VeeDao, we want to, as I was saying, like first and foremost, take care of the holders that we have. That's why we have an alpha channel, and we're doing these AMAs to provide like high quality interviews with people in the space and POAPs and that sort of thing, answering questions, education, book games. But secondary, we want to push as fast as we can to more than 50% minted. So we have a vault of over 100 ETH to sweep the VeeFriends floor. And then that will create us enough buzz to sell out, I'm sure. And then we're going to be looking at other blue chips and how we can generate revenue with the assets that we have so that this can become sustainable. Because you can sustain on buying and selling NFTs, but it's a lot less reliable than revenue generation and diversification.
Okay, that's also new and interesting. Can you give an intuition of what do you mean by revenue for VeeDao?
Sure. I mean, it really depends on the risk profile of the holders, right? We could create a staking node and be comfy with our 6 to 7% and watch it ride. We can invest in small creators and in exchange for a percentage of their project selling, which wouldn't necessarily be passive, but it would be revenue. There may be some artists that want to give us some of the royalties, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about taking artist royalties, just personally. Then there are also plenty of DeFi protocols that are far more risky in staking. That are much more volatile than an Ethereum node. But and we also, as a organization, we need to define for ourselves what is a blue chip, because that's a highly debated topic. But the Olympus DAO is doing like absolutely wild APR for their token holders that are staking, but it's a lot more volatile and risky than simply staking Ethereum.
Okay, gotcha. And last question for me to take a decision, even if you have convinced me, is the 10,000 limit that is proposed right now. Is it established that is a hard limit and that won't be increased, or it's also part of the vote that will be done with the first 10,000 holders that might vote to expand the user base or the holder base?
Yeah, no. I understand your question is, will the project as it is increase the supply for whatever reason to accrue more revenue for the vault or whatever? No. And the reason for that is, number one, it's built into the smart contract, which is immutable. So we couldn't change it if we wanted to. But number two, we would launch a different project if we wanted to do something like that. We've thrown around the idea, because our mascot is a blueberry, of doing like a blueberry PFP project that's like just free claim for holders, and then we could sell a certain amount. Or, the same way I was suggesting we could incubate and basically give startup capital to an artist working on their project. Well, they could do it internally within the VeeDao. We could have our own sort of like PLP program, which you may not be familiar with, is a pre-launch program that VeeFriends does. They don't provide capital to those artists, but they provide marketing and exposure. And for VeeFriends, when Gary Vee tweets about their project, it's a big deal. For us, it's nowhere near as big of a deal. So we could work to just provide them, this community and the network beyond that, to say hey, here's an artist, here's the value prop, get in or don't. I think one of the things that provides me a lot of patience in how this thing is built is being comfortable that not every idea will work, not every project will sell out, not every vote will be net profitable, not every answer I give to a question is going to be the best. And it's just like how we found now, I think it's amazing that this room is only getting bigger the longer this conversation is happening. Like, clearly that shows me that the questions you have are questions that others have. So in a sense, it may take a long time, but building the membership of this DAO one by one by one by one by one, and answering people's concerns where they are instead of with a big blanket, I think is how you build a strong community that is going to like weather the storm, you know, which will come eventually.
It will come. It will come for sure, and that's exactly why, in my personal aspect, I'm taking some time. Those are the most resource, the most valuable resource that we have is time and attention. Taking the time and attention to understand where should I invest. As you said, I mean, it's being comfortable with some investment that could go wrong, and that's life. But asking some questions and getting some intuitions, and in this case, now that I have understood this V ecosystem a bit more, trusting you, it does make more sense, right, than 3 different paywalls for Mr.
the same thing. Yeah.
GV to cash in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I appreciate the perspective, because it's something I have to remember, that like, it's easy, even though we have it on our website, it's on our Twitter, we say it often, this isn't affiliated with VeeFriends or Gary Vee. We have to understand that that is going to be people's first assumption when they see V and they see the color scheme and they see the artwork. Exactly. And they're going to think this is an expansion.
That's the whole use of a brand, right? To transmit some form of understanding, not by not reading FAQs, but just with names and colors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a super great discussion. I want to welcome everybody who's listening. If there's follow-up questions or other things that you want to discuss now, I have a little bit more time. But like, this was really great. Do I
thank you, Jeremy? For me, it's I will round up here. I will hear, of course, all the questions if people have it. But you have replied and all my doubts, and I will be minting one of those tokens.
Hell yeah! I think you're gonna like what the tokens look like. What the tokens? Well, I hope you like the token art, but I think you'll like what the token gated channels look like. You'll see we have our own lounge. We have a place where we vote the alpha. We have a channel for suggestions and for purchases, and that's only going to grow as we see more need for channels. So we do have quite a lot of channels, but hopefully they're all serving a purpose.
And just last question, buying 2 instead of 1, give my voice or my opinion more weight, but there is not yet something that gives you more access to more token?
Yes, I believe the answer is yes. So 1 token equals 1 vote. So the more tokens you have, the more power you have in deciding a vote. There are a variety of artworks and words. So the more you mint, the higher likelihood that you will get a better token. But to the question of like, yeah, there's not a system of like people holding 1 token get this, people holding 5 tokens get this, or 10 tokens or more get this. There's no further gates like that.
Yeah, it's binary. It's a yes or no, but it's not a question of levels.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you very much again, Jeremy. Have a great afternoon. Great year. I think this 2022 year is gonna be maybe first half. We might see the confirmation of the wave that 2021 has been, and then like any technological wave, it's going to pass the peak to the deception, and that's where 95% or 99% of the project will be dumped, which is completely normal and natural.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm trying to build intuition, asking questions to see if I can invest my attention into a project that will survive the depression and the big dump that is coming.
Yeah, I think that's great. I want to just clarify so that there are no surprises. I should have said yet when regarding like token gated things for people who have more tokens, because it's also a way of showing appreciation for those who believe more in the project. If you've invested 0.5 versus 0.05, there may come a time where we're like, hey, we want to give you something special. And even now, it's not within our token collection, but for the book games, which Gabo, I don't know if you're familiar with Gary's book games, which is his next NFT collection, not affiliated with us, but within the VeeFriends IP. And we do have addition, along with the player pool, channels based on how many tokens people have for trading and stuff. So I just wanted to sort of leave our options open should that change.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar. I will take the time to see what it is. But yeah, thank you for your time, and anyone that is in the room is welcome to ask questions now.
Yeah. Hey, Seema, how are you?
Hey, me. Hey, Gabo. Nice to meet you, Gabo, and Jeremy. Always a pleasure hearing you articulate, what this DAO is. And honestly, I haven't been at all the AMAs, but you were amazing today. And Gabo, you asked a lot of really great questions. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm just saying the discussion, especially if you're new to the DAO, I met Jeremy and Cohen through VeeFriends. And so when I heard that they were doing the DAO, I kind of went in it with full trust of just like, I know I met Jeremy briefly in New York and Cohen briefly in New York during one of the VeeFriends initial meetups. But the more and more I hear you articulate the roadmap and the research that's been done, continued done, just excited to be so part of this community. But as you're bringing in more people, there's going to be so much value. One of the areas I'd love to talk through, I do a lot of business model strategy. I'm a co-organizer of DC Startup Week here. I run an acceleration program, work with a lot of different industries and on nonprofit boards. So that whole conversation of having the alpha knowledge in this space and being able to articulate it in different ways and, helping support others get into the NFT space, what it looks like throughout, different industry outside of just the artist space, is that something we could sort of do an AMA brainstorming around within the community? Because different people do different things, right? There are people who've completely shifted and pivoted their businesses like yourself, into the space where, it's a very intriguing space. So 50% of my time I've been focused on education. I look forward to being able to take that over and, helping others bring it into their space. But I just feel like our community is so fully vested and there can be a really great way to bring, I don't know if I don't know who and everybody's in the DAO, but some people are developers. Other people know the back end here, some people have the branding, so it's it'll be interesting to do more of that if you guys are open to it.
Super open to it. And to sort of present it a different way. The channel in the alpha in the owners section is alpha from the admin. But we've already posted a couple things there that have been brought to my attention by members. And one of the benefits of having a shared sort of hive mind like this is I can only be in so many places in the metaverse at once. And obviously I'm going to have outsized attention toward VeeFriends, what Gary Vee's talking about, et cetera. But, more hands makes for light work. There are opportunities happening every day. And I want to be very cautious to say just because it's posted in alpha doesn't mean it's going to make you money. Some things that I'm posting there are for educational purposes. I posted about the secret project, which is minting today. And that is one where I personally will tell you if I am invested or not. And I plan to try to mint that project. But whether I can mint it or not, I am going to follow that project for the next week and a half because the people who are building it are pushing the boundaries of the space. And you know, there's a dozen Twitter spaces going on at any given time, and so like sharing our resources in the same way you're sharing your expertise is something that we're going to have to deal with a lot of trial and error to figure out how's the best way to do that. You know, the chat can move fast sometimes and things can get lost, but you know, I'm really interested in doing more workshop stuff for token holders.
Absolutely.
Like I had mentioned in the owner's
That's what I was going to
chat.
suggest.
Yeah. Like I want to do like a public speaking thing. Because I get DMs like almost every day now of like, where did you learn to speak this way? Like, and I don't even consider myself like a great speaker. I just have the, it's a bit of a skill, but it's more of a mindset to forgive myself when I stutter, when I make a mistake, when I can't find my words, be comfortable in the silence and continue forward, you know? But there are people who like, they don't necessarily understand that like breath is like a critical component in speech, you know, and sometimes just like breaking down simples and basics. I know there's people like of the 70 people in this room, like I'm sure we touch almost every industry in terms of skill sets. So I'm very interested in that conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can talk offline. I mean, I've been talking to Cohen offline on things. So I just want to be able to support the group, but that is definitely an area of interest if others are as well, especially even on the nonprofit side. I mean, there's some incredible nonprofits looking to get in the space. They don't know how, you know, and so like when they're new projects, you know, it's like, and that is such an opportunity for nonprofits to gain unrestricted funding for the right ones. And, you know, I find it like it could be game changing for the nonprofit space for the right ones, right? So there's a lot of different angles here. So anyway, let's keep this conversation going.
Absolutely. I actually sat in on a Twitter space last week or two ago about like, will like can DAOs get nonprofit status, and like how is that going to be viewed? In fact, the Wyoming DAO LLC committee, which for those who don't know, a DAO cannot be acknowledged as a formal entity in the United States in a corporate sense, except in Wyoming. And they passed this law last year. I can say that now. They passed this law last year, like somewhere like March or something, April. And they are the first ones to do it. And they just released an FAQ today about how DAO LLCs can deal with physical assets as well. And while that's going to be important for some in the way of like collecting physical art or coins or whatever the case may be, also just like having a on-ramp to deal with the physical world when you're recognized as a DAO mutually governed by token holders is like a huge step forward. And so like that's going to start to challenge like you're talking about nonprofit status for DAOs and other initiatives that are phygital, right? Physical and digital. Just a random
that's cute.
I know, right? Just a random thought that popped into my head that, and I'm also just saying this for myself because I'm gonna review this video and along the way like rewrite our FAQ. Don't expect that to happen overnight, by the way. But one thing that I've found is a big value prop for people in joining this project is simply that the Friends Lounge and the Owners Lounge is like the same vibe as VeeFriends, but it's not as hectic. And like, there's going to be something for everybody. I mean, hopefully there's something for everybody, but more so it's like people have different access points. And like, sometimes the general chat in VeeFriends is like super overwhelming and you can't feel like you can maintain a conversation, where here in our server, you have the same ethos of empathy and compassion and patience and kindness, but you don't have, 200,000 people or even 50,000 people jumping into the chat when I tag all roles. So just wanted to mention that. This was so much fun. I need to head out the door actually, but thank you for coming up, Seema. Thank you, Gabo, for the great questions. Thank you, everyone in the audience for sticking around. keep it going. I know a lot of people like to DM me with their questions about the project, and I'm happy to reply to you, but it really is better if you drop it in the lounge. That way we can all mutually answer the question. And if you want me to get back to it, just tag me and I'll get there before the end of the day. So
have a great walk.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to take my dog to the park.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Bye,
Take care.
Seema. So we'll see y'all soon. And until next time, happy fucking New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. Talk to you soon. Great show. I'm really glad I did that. Sometimes you just got to run with the feeling. I was like, I can't answer all these guys' questions via text. I'm doing too many things at once. Let me do a live. Let me record it. And voila. 1 hour later, I feel like I know the project better. Isn't that something? So there it is. I'm going to end this now. Thank you to our 2 viewers on Twitch. I love you dearly. And I will dance or not. Yeah. Announcements about Stoner Cats, AMA, and NFT Trader coming very soon. Really got to get those POAPs out today. And on and on and on. So talk soon.